Women are 50% of the population, and somehow, they are often written like the author has never engaged with one. There is so much wasted potential in characters because the author decided that they had to abide by an arbitrary set of narrative rules that don't apply to the male characters. They are often pushed to the sidelines to make room for male characters, and are written more like objects or rewards before the characterization comes in. Anime is cool, but also where I see the most egregious examples of this. I do want to start by saying, compared to even 10 years ago, we are doing better, but I still see some naughty things in writing, and I want to use this video to talk about it. So here's my top 5 most hated tropes we gotta leave in 2023, starting with the skilled but overshadowed female character. This is the character that has a badass introduction or maybe one moment of prowess before forever shelved, never to be seen or to be useful again. I'm going to use My Hero Academia as an example. I'm acutely aware that these characters have moments way after, but I'm mainly going to focus on a couple seasons after their introduction. Because if it takes 100 episodes for a female character to be useful, that's not really a win. Now let's talk about Nejire. Nejire was introduced alongside Mirio and Tamaki as the big three. They are all supposed to be top students of their year, effectively making them the strongest peers our main characters come across at that time. I'm going to try and not spoil too much, but essentially within this arc, all 3 of them are selected to go on an undercover mission to save Eri. Along with a ton of other pro heroes, Deku, etc., there are a lot of character-defining emotional arcs. Tamaki has an arc, Mirio has an incredibly character-defining moment, of course, and Deku, the main character, is kicking ass. But Nejire never does anything noteworthy the entire time, even though she's present and canonically has strength on par with the other two. She doesn't have a moment on par with them. I've seen this in One Piece, specifically with Robin as well. Her ability is so powerful and unique, but after Alabasta, specifically when she joins the Straw Hats, she is considerably less of a threat compared to when she was introduced. Her abilities are now almost entirely supplementary and barely offensive at all. Robin is still a great character in other aspects, but it sucks to see how much they nerfed her and how little she has to do with the actual conflict and fights nowadays, especially on her own and not paired with another male character. This trope sucks because it's so entirely filled to the brim with wasted potential and unfulfilled promises. But sometimes the authors are aware of the prevalence of this happening. Some authors decide that they want to consciously go against this narrative and show women as a force to be reckoned with. Unfortunately, these writers tend to fall into another trope I'm not too fond of. This trope is the I'm good enough arc. I define this trope as when the narrative or even character themselves outright states or implies their biggest hindrance is being a woman in a man's world. It doesn't matter how seemingly far removed the setting is from reality, there's always somehow a similar history of women being a marginalized group. An example of this trope can even be seen in Jujutsu Kaisen, which, let me be the first to say, is far from the worst offender on this list as far as negative tropes go. And I wouldn't even call this trope inherently negative, it's just not as progressive as male writers or as a lot of writers seem to think it is.
女なら欠点だもんね。よくも私のご尊顔を。呪術師が実力主義だと思ってない？ああ。女はね、実力があっても可愛くなければ舐められる。わかったよ。
Why? Well, Knuckles said it best.
It all comes down to this one penalty kick. Can the young woman break the glass ceiling and prove once and for all that a female can be just as good an athlete as a male?
You know, Amy, anytime someone calls attention to the breaking of gender rules, it ultimately undermines the concept of gender equality by implying that this is an exception and not the status quo. What? Just because I'm a meathead doesn't mean I'm not a feminist.
Knuckles is so wise, guys. Oftentimes, but not always, the female characters would still be outshined by their male counterparts anyway. Ochako, I miss you. These stories don't move me, and while I will keep it in perspective that not every woman has the same experience, for me, as the US is on the freer side, I still think these female characters will make an even stronger impact on young girls and boys if they're allowed to just exist like the male characters without it being constantly called out that this is the exception and not the norm. Thanks again, Knuckles. But wait, hold on, I got more. Something that goes hand in hand with this one, the dark underbelly, if you will, the yin to the yang, and I call it the I punch bitches trope. It's when a typically male character would highlight their opponent was a woman and decide that this would be the instance he would see a woman as equal, if it gave him the opportunity to beat her ass. Now, it's Shounen. they fighting, right? I'm not here to say male characters aren't allowed to fight female characters. That only leads to female characters getting shelved for hundreds of episodes until the most bland female henchman comes out and challenges our heroine. We don't want that. But it's the added context of having otherwise barely any female characters present and doing anything even close to equal of what the male character's doing, but deciding that this is the moment you're gonna be a feminist. These kinds of scenes are usually highly praised because people find them funny and progressive, because it supposedly promotes equality, even though any level of narrative equality is not exhibited in any other context. Are your female characters getting equal showtime, interesting fights, backstories and characterizations unrelated to womanhood or romance? Or are they just getting punched? It's thinly veiled misogyny disguised as equality. One Piece has its flaws, but I think the scene where Luffy punches Vivi is actually executed in a way that doesn't fall into this trope.
Stop talking like that! I won't listen to it! Do you understand? No one crocodile's fault!
She punches him first, and he retaliates. He doesn't do an awkward men's rights equality speech, and the scene isn't animated in the weirdest way possible. It feels genuine. He actually sees her as equal because he doesn't feel the need to point it out. And Vivi is a fully fleshed out character in her own right, so this doesn't come off like a stab at edgy violence humor I've seen other examples try to take. Be like Luffy. Be cool. Another trope I absolutely cannot stand is the depiction of SA as comedic or harmless.
FBI, open up!
Obviously, I can't say words directly because YouTube will demonetize me, but guys, bear with me and understand what I'm trying to say here. The pervert trope has done irredeemable damage on the anime community as a whole. So this trope, right, is usually a male who fantasizes about usually women, which leads him to actions that sit on a line that often blurs consent and criminality. These gags are often played for laughs, and the actual effects of this behavior is usually downplayed. That could include spying on women in a bathroom or while changing, groping them or unwanted touching, trying to see under their skirts, and these acts almost always lack consent. The issue with jokes like these is they trivialize SA and harassment. If you agree that the demographic this genre is aimed at is teenage boys, like 12 to 18, then that's kind of a big deal. If young boys are seeing these narratively likable characters that they are supposed to root for do these acts, it's not insane to think that they will imitate the behavior as kids do. I've seen kids imitate this behavior, thinking it's a funny joke. 10-year-olds don't get this from thin air. This puts the girls their age that they are around at risk, and let's be honest, these jokes were never funny anyway. My final point is like the most generic point, and that's why I wanted to end with it, because it's, like, you guys know what I mean. The sexualization of female character designs. So this goes hand in hand with the previous one, overabundance of fan service, etc., etc. But I would particularly, what irks me is when the artist is designing the characters with one hand, so much so that they completely don't even try to make the character's personality and goals and anything reflect in their design. For example, look at this character. From her design, tell me what you think about this character. How does she stand out? How is she different from these characters? What comes to mind? What comes to mind? Did you guess she's a 16-year-old girl who lost everything and is merely fighting every day to try to survive in her own country? No? Character designs should reflect the personality and the theme of the character. There are plenty of good examples, and I'd like to point to My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer. Those animes are all packed with interesting, vibrant, non-same-facey designs. And I want that to be the standard, not the rule. Truly, I love anime despite its flaws, but that doesn't mean I need to be silent about them. If anything, I hope to see improvement because I think a genre aimed at young, impressionable teenage boys, and obviously a lot of girls watch this too, should be more mindful of that. You see how much anti-women content and the Sneakos and the Andrew Tates, like how much traction they can get. And so it's dangerous to have some of these talking points reiterated in the media kids consume. We can do better, so let's do better. That's all I got for this video. If you like this one, you'll love these, but before you go, I'm thinking of doing a sister video to this one about positive masculinity in the media and what that looks like. If you're interested, let me know down below. Spooksy, signing out.